Hello and welcome back to the VCC channel. In this video, I'm going to close out a video series I have made in the past. It was related to my injury in July I have encountered. And since then, I had a little bit of a video series about my recovery from the injury, not being able to have fitness intervals as well as activities at all. So this is the closeout video, more or less, and let's dive into it. So in this video, I'm actually wanted to talk a little bit more about my current state, my current standing in terms of aerobic fitness, how I regained my fitness. And first of all, let's start with more or less current state. It's November 2025, almost December. The year is almost coming to an end. And yes, my injury was on 15th of July. I wasn't able to do any activity whatsoever for 6 weeks, 1.5 months. So that was my time not doing anything at all. And here I recorded my first activity being on the 30th of August. That was my first ride, indoor of course. The home trainer, the indoor trainer was the perfect tool to get to use to the movement of riding your bike, moving the leg without fearing to fall off the bike. And then further 1 month, I did my first effort, so to speak, on the 8th of November. In terms of effort, I mean, really put power to the legs, because before that, it was not really cycling. It was more like regaining all the fitness, getting the heart again used to the efforts and building up strength in the legs, of course. So that was my first effort on 8th of October. Then the next milestone was a, so to speak, FTP test. It wasn't deliberate. I did not plan to do one. By the way, this was my first FTP test I have done so far. Somehow I tried to circumnavigate FTP tests, and because it's hurting quite a bit, right? So let's jump in real quick into the data. I have here open my Velo viewer, and I first of all wanted to show you a figure that you can see right here. That is the year 2024. So as you can see, we have a good amount of activities here in the year. And then of course, in July, there was the last activity due to my injury, having a rest here where no activities occurred, of course. And then starting off, as I said before, try to continue and regain my fitness. And the next milestone here visually also, what I said, my first effort at a weighted average power of 302 watts. Quite significant for me, and I was happy to do it like that. And as you can see, I have this cluster right now until the recent day where I have a foundation of workouts down with not that great average power. That is where I built my aerobic fitness. And on top of that, I took the advantage of participating in certain activities considered races or group rides. And this is what it looks like. Quite polarized. Some low efforts in terms of wattage, and then a few of high intensity efforts. If we scroll down here, we can see all my years I have done in the past. This is the point where we're at. Here, of course, the plateauing, and this is the mileage I've done in the year. And if we go to the last point, as of today, we are at 12,500 kilometers, as opposed to last year, 2024, a little bit more of kilometers done, 24.5% more last year. Then there is potentially the question how I did it. Let's go to intervals ICU. As you can see, I did almost each day some kind of activity. Just going into the fitness tab, we have plenty of graphs right here. In the top graph, you see the relatively general curve of fitness, form, and fatigue. So the blue line is here my fitness before the injury, of course here injury, and then we have this drop. And here I started training yet again. As you can see, it's slightly going up. And if we take a look where we currently at and compare it, we are kind of here. There's not a lot to the point where I had my maximum fitness prior to my injury. We have to take into account that Intervals ICU does not have all my information. So it pulled information from Strava, but it's not the entire data set. We have to take my peak fitness prior to injury with a little bit of restriction, right? This is my zone where I should be, where the software is considering it's good. And as you can see, my load is bringing me to a zone where it's called optimal. If you have a little bit of reduced effort, you would end up in a so-called fresh zone. And if you overdo it, you might end up in this red zone. And according to my data right here, I was quite significantly large amount of time in the high zone. As said, similar to the fitness, the same goes for the form. I'm in doubt if I really was that much in the zone of red prior to my injury. This is also maybe due to the lack of complete data set. But more importantly, you can see my resting heart rate. So I came from this base right here, and then after fitness, my resting heart rate went up. And then I have here some individual counts maxing out at 50 heartbeats, whereas here my resting heart rate was down to 40 at minimum. Yet again, it's going down again. So that's a good trend. My resting heart rate is going down. This graph also shows the distribution of load underneath my threshold and above my threshold. Long story short, and here also the distribution of the zones. So predominantly in the green zone, that is good. Let's go into the performance tab. So we have the beginning data set compared to the 42 days behind data set. And I want to aim at my VO2 max value. It's here at 64 calculated. So take that into account. It is calculated or estimated. That's not measured in a laboratory or something like that. But in comparison, this is the figure of Intervals ICU. We also have the figure of Garmin Connect. And if we can see, it's even higher. It's 71 for cycling VO2 max. There is this distinction between VO2 max and cycling VO2 max. It's just a ballpark figure. And then there is also Swift calculating a figure of VO2 max, and this is saying 60. So we have three more or less independent softwares rendering out VO2 maxes. As said, these are calculations, and I much rather take the 60. This would be great if I'm able to have a 60 VO2 max, because I'm highly in doubt that 71 is the right. Other than that, we can here also see comparisons of my current form dependent on the time frames. This is over activities over 2 hours down to 5 seconds. And then the purple line is the last 42 days average, as opposed to the red line that indicates dataset Intervals ICU from the beginning. As said, not the whole data set is included in Intervals ICU. But what we can see right here, my EFDP is in comparison before injury and after injury quite close to each other. That is great. Also, my 2-hour power is quite close. Where the lines go apart from each other is when it comes to my sprint capabilities. I'm very convinced that if I would ride now in summer outdoors, I would have quite good 5-second values. The reason why this is not reflected here is because on a indoor trainer, you not really sprint indoors. You cannot develop the power of a sprint indoors in comparison to outdoors. So keep that in consideration. But what I want to show you in essence here is that the lines coming close to each other very nicely. And this of course indicates that I have almost regained all my capabilities from prior to injury. Let's switch to the another analysis tab. You are already familiar with this top left figure. That is the before and after injury comparison of heart rate at certain wattages. I told you already in another video that if those lines would be again match perfectly, then it would mean that I'm in terms of heart rate and wattage production at the point from prior to my injury. And this is to a certain degree true, as you can see here, up to, I don't know, 250 watts or something like that, this is almost covering the same pathway, right? And here, as you can see, I'm still lagging behind. The aim is, of course, to bring those two lines together. And here on the right-hand side, you see also prior to after, yet again, but now it's the average wattage, and this was also reflected already in the Velo viewer. So as you can see, I have here like this lower wattage average power cluster, and then we have all the races I've conducted in the past. Going to the bottom left side here, we can see also again prior to after injury, and here funny and not very surprisingly, because we are indoors and usually indoor riding is more constant. You do not have a lot of variance in your wattages. So this is also reflected here in the data. So we have a very dense cluster as opposed to the prior data from injury, where we have like more scattered pattern, because outdoors the variance of data distribution is kind of different. I would leave it here in terms of data. Let's make the conclusion. Now that we went through all my data, what can we derive from all of that? I can conclude that I have come quite close to my capabilities that I had prior to my injury. Of course, these are all the data, and I can also feel into myself, and I have the assumption that I'm not at this point where I have been. I'm quite happy with all my metrics. My heart rate is going down. My weight is going down just a little bit. That's great. Strength in my leg is also again there. I had a little bit of issues in terms of power distribution and left leg power contribution. That is normal because I lost a lot of muscles and now I have regained quite a bit. But still, it does not feel the same. But this is also to be expected because I have a massive amount of foreign object in my leg. And I would say, yeah, this is more or less interfering with all the tissue around. So it is to be expected that this is not the same as without it, right? What is up ahead? I want to ask myself, and yeah, I would like to continue this training as I am currently doing. I have average weeks of 9 to 10 hours. So that's a good load for the time being, but I have to a little bit adjust, because currently I have a high frequency, meaning I train more or less each day, but maybe I could insert some rest days and then have more concentrated loads on one day. Currently I do not have a plan. I'm just doing it how it is working out with work, with private life and so forth, and also the availabilities of training. Yeah, I should really follow more or less a deliberate pattern, and yeah, I have to work on that. Yeah, races coming up over the winter in Zwift, of course, and I want to participate in a lot of races because it's quite fun. I do not do a lot of high intensity sessions, so this is a good effort doing races. Of course, it does not replace quality high intensity training. I have to take this into account. You cannot replace high quality training with races. But still though, I have a lot of fun with them, and it makes me in a certain degree, of course, better. And then there is almost the year coming to an end. This means there's Wörtherfeste 500 around the corner. I, of course, will participate yet again, and I'm looking forward to that. With that, I will leave it here. We will hopefully see us in another video. I close out this series at this point. Until then, BCC. Ciao.